Good morning, everybody. It is 10:02 a.m. and we're going to begin the meeting. At first, I would like to advise everybody in attendance today that this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment is being called to hear applications under the Planning Act for minor variances and/or consents. This is a statutory public meeting. Anyone having an interest in these applications may make oral or written submissions for the committee's consideration. The committee will render, after each application, a verbal decision in this date, and the agent and applicant will receive a copy of the committee's decision in writing via email approximately 10 days after the meeting. So each application will follow the same procedure. First, the planning coordinator will introduce the application and staff recommendation outlined in the report, which was posted on the City of Kitchener's website the Friday prior to the meeting. The chair, myself, will advise the committee of any late written submissions circulated prior to the meeting that should be taken into consideration. The chair, myself, will confirm with the agent and applicant if they have reviewed the staff report and whether they are in support of the staff recommendation. The chair will then invite parties in opposition to make oral submissions. The parties providing oral submissions, we ask that they attempt to keep their comments short and to the point and avoid repeating comments already stated by previous parties. The committee members may ask questions of any of the parties in opposition. Then the chair, myself, will invite the agent and applicant to make any comments they may still have. The agent and applicant may ask questions regarding the staff recommendation. Finally, the committee members may ask questions of the agent and applicant, of which the committee members may then ask questions of city staff. And finally, at the end of each application, the committee will pass a motion to approve, reject, or defer the motion. So the first item on our agenda today is I ask that any of my fellow members declare an interest in the application, and of which after, if you have an interest, we ask that that member please leave the committee for the remainder of that application.
Yep. Chair, I have a conflict on 44 Rushham.
Okay, so thank you, Member Santos. Member Hanna?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a conflict on the application at 131 St. George Street, as I have a family member that lives next door.
Thank you, Member Hanna, and then Member Gundam.
Chair, I also have a conflict on 131 St. George, as I live on that block.
Thank you, Member Gundam. And then finally, the chair myself has a conflict on the Glasgow property, which, I forget the address. Staff remind me the address. 79?
709.
709, thank you, staff. And then, so again, just to reiterate, at the beginning of that application, I ask that my fellow members please take a step out of the room into the back. So our first application, if the agent and applicant is here, is a previously deferred application, which is A 2022-16, which is 44 Rushmore. May staff please introduce this application?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is an application that was originally heard by the committee in the fall of 2022. It was deferred until January of this year, where it was further deferred to this committee meeting, and that was to give the applicant an opportunity to prepare a tree preservation and enhancement plan, tree management plan, and also to look at the grading and drainage on the subject property and its impacts on adjacent lands. That work has been completed. It was submitted and reviewed by staff. Staff reviewed the application in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act and finds that it meets all 4. Just to remind the committee, this is a minor variance for a reduction in the minimum side yard requirement from 3 meters to 1.5 meters.
Thank you, staff. At this point, has the agent or applicant had an opportunity to review the staff report?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of committee. Yes, we have. I am Carol Wiebe. I'm the agent for the applicant. Also with me this morning, just in case there are any questions, is Curtis Darling. He is one of the co-owners of the property, and Lynn Ingram, who is an engineer with MTE. So I know that some of the questions in the past have dealt with grading and drainage, so we thought rather than me try and answer engineering questions, we'll bring the expert in case there are any specific questions from the committee. But we have read the report. We're in agreement with the recommendations. Mm-hmm. And if there's any questions or clarifications, we'd be pleased to answer them.
Thank you. did you have Member Hannah? Yeah.
Yeah, just clarification. First of all, I want to thank you for the redesign. I was one of the, I think I am the only committee member that saw the first application, so grading and drainage and tree preservation, from my perspective, have been handled well. Just wanted to know, does the tree preservation plan have or require the arborist to be on site during construction?
Yes, we actually did have several meetings with the arborist on the property, and Jennifer Costigan said that, we recommend that she would be on site during any of the site works, and the owners are in agreement with that. And it has been a very iterative process with both the arborist and the engineers and the architects, so there's been multiple revisions to those plans to make sure that we can minimize impact to the root zones, as well as addressing those drainage and grading concerns that were previously identified.
At this point, if there is any members of the public that wanted to make submissions in opposition, they're welcome to come forward. I take it that there's no one. Does the agent have any other comments they'd like to make known to the committee?
Other than just reminding the committee that this is a minor variance for the extent of the garage that will be 1.5 meters from the property line. The house itself is quite a distance from the property line, so the concerns dealing with overlook and privacy, we think, are more than addressed. And as I said, there's been a fair bit of consultation amongst the experts, and we feel that we've adequately addressed the concerns that the neighboring property owner had raised. So we would, I guess, request the committee's approval of the variance as set out in the staff report.
Thank you. Did my fellow members have any questions of the applicant or staff? At this point, then, I ask for a motion on the floor. Yeah, Member Hannah?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will fully move the staff recommendation. As I said before, I think this is a great redesign, and I really appreciate the applicants taking the time to do so. Thanks.
And then second?
I'll second the motion.
Thanks, Member Gunham. Is there any debate? No? I think we're ready to put this to a vote. So all in favor of the motion on the floor? Yep. And Madam Clerk, it's passed unanimously. So thank you, applicant.
Thank you.
So at this point, sorry guys, at this point I'd invite the agent or applicant for application B 2022-057, the 193 Louisa Street. Please come forward. No? Can I please have staff introduce this application, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This was a consent application deferred from a meeting of last year in October. It was deferred to give the applicant an opportunity to revise the application to request an easement for servicing over the separate lands in favor of the retained. And so the applicant has prepared the reference plan and submitted it for review. Staff have reviewed the updated application in light of all regional and city policies and finds that it meets all of those and is recommending approval, subject to a number of conditions. I would note that condition number 15 is proposed to be revised to remove clause I, and the reason for this is updating it in terms of removing any references regarding building construction, as this cannot be guaranteed through the Building Code Act. So staff again is recommending approval of the application subject to the amendment of condition 15.
Thank you, staff. I asked the applicant if they had an opportunity to review the staff report and recommendations. Just push the little speak button on the microphone, and then it'll turn red. Yep, you're good to go.
Yeah. Yes, we did review it, and then basically.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, I ask any members of the public if they had any submissions they'd like to make in opposition to please step forward. The chair is satisfied there's no one here to provide any oral opposition. At this point, does the applicant have any comments they'd like to be made known to the committee?
No comments.
No, thank you. Is any of my fellow members have comments for the applicant or committee? Yeah, Member Hannah?
Just a quick question for staff. The reason for the removal of 15I from the region is because this is not subject to site plan approval?
The dwelling has already been constructed, so there's no way for staff to guarantee that the dwelling has been installed with provision of central air conditioning. Noise attenuation measures are not implemented through the Building Code Act.
Okay. Thank you. Again, this was one of the applications for my fellow members that I was involved with originally. I think we were ready to approve it at that time, and unfortunately, there was a call for an easement, so I am fully supportive of the application as it stated.
Thanks, Member Hanna. Since there's no questions of staff for the applicant, can I get a motion on the floor? Yeah, Member Gundry.
I'll put forward a motion to approve the application with the conditions as amended.
Can I get a second? Member Santos, second. And I guess we put it to debate. If there's any comment debate. So all in favor of the motion on the floor as amended? It's carried unanimously, so thank you, applicant. At this point, I'd ask for the agent or applicant of the application A 2023-024, that's the 273 Hartwood Avenue. Applicant, please come forward. And then when staff is ready, could you please introduce the application?
Yes, thank you, Chair. These are two minor variance applications for 271 and 273 Hartwood Avenue. They are minor variance applications to increase the maximum permitted driveway width from 3 meters to 5.2 meters. The lots are 7.6 meters in width, and accordingly, the driveway may only be 40% of the lot width, so the 3 meters. Staff have reviewed the variances in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act and finds that they don't meet all 4 tests. The applications are not considered minor, they're not appropriate for the development of the lot, and they don't meet the intent of the official plan or the zoning bylaw. Accordingly, staff is recommending a refusal of both applications.
Thank you, staff. Has the applicant had an opportunity to review the staff recommendation and report?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time. Yes, I reviewed the report. My name is Bojan Babi Karanovic. I'm the owner of 271, and I'm representing 273. My brother Nick is the owner of the next property.
Thank you. At this point, if there's any members of the public that would like to come forward in opposition or support, please come forward. We have one member coming, or one public coming down. Thank you. All right. Ma'am, over on this side. Sorry, I know it's a little confusing. It's okay.
My name is Mary Corey. I have lived at 277 Hartwood for 30 years. It's right next door to 273 and 271, and I think it's a great neighborhood. I request that the committee decline the request for an exemption in order to widen the driveways next door. Currently, the entire 50-foot total frontage of the semis is covered by asphalt and concrete with a stone culvert down the center, and is being used to park 4 cars, plus those that are parked on the asphalt-covered boulevard. Turning the entire front of each unit into a parking lot is a significant detraction to this neighborhood. If we want infill housing to be accepted in our neighborhoods, it has to fit in with the houses, and front parking lots do not look attractive. All the hardscaping means there's nowhere for water to drain through other than into the storm sewers. There's no place to put snow, nor to put the garbage and recycling other than on the neighbor's boulevard. So I ask you to decline.
Thank you. Does my fellow members have any questions of the public member? No? At this point, I ask the applicant to make any comments that he may have.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. I would like to address that I believe you're the first application in this matter where we have old zoning bylaw 85 and a new zoning 2019. We were allowed to build semi-duplex as per zoning 85. In 2019 zoning, semi-duplex does not exist. It's a semi with additional dwelling unit. So we were in this gray area. New zoning came in effect and then was under appeal from March till January of this year. We were in phase of building from May, and we got occupancy in December 5 of 2022. We built the driveway as per zoning, taking into consideration both zonings. One was under appeal, one was in effect. When we designed the front yards, we did a single driveway, and we have sidewalks, which are indicated by the neighbor. One sidewalk is 0.9 meter, that leads to the basement unit. The other one is about 2.29 meters wide. When we occupied the buildings, we recognized a safety concern. We are allowed 2 parkings, one per each dwelling. One is in the parking garage, one is in the front. When a car in the parking garage needs to leave, we have a driveway, a car that needs to give them space to leave. And we are blocking a lane anywhere between 30 seconds to a minute, minute and a half. This is the reason we're asking for widening to remove this safety concern of ours.
Thank you, applicant. At this point, if any of my fellow members had questions of the applicant or staff, I asked them to bring this one up. Yeah, Member Gundren?
Through the chair, more a question for staff. Could staff maybe clarify the comments by the applicant regarding potential discrepancy between the 2 zoning bylaws? It seems to me like the applicant is hanging their hat, so to speak, on what might have been contained in the previous bylaw. So if staff could just clarify.
Yes, when the dwelling was built and when the severance was considered last year, there were 2 bylaws in effect, 85-1 and the new bylaw. The most restrictive bylaw applies. So at the time the committee saw the application for consent, they would have seen the single driveway. That was the most restrictive bylaw, and that the dwelling at the time met the new zoning bylaw. So both bylaws were in effect when the dwelling was constructed and when the severance was considered by the committee last year.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification.
Member Hanna?
Just a clarification for staff as well, because I do remember this application. So the assumption would have been made 1 parking space into the garage and 1 parking space in the driveway, and stacking is perfectly legitimate for duplexes, double duplexes, and now even 3-unit buildings, as I understand. So it's just a matter of inconvenience, but I think I'm reading that correctly?
That is correct.
Yep. Please, applicant, yep, there you go.
Can I add a comment?
Of course, more than welcome to.
Okay, thank you. So before we submitted our application, we reached out to planning, and it was reported to us by senior planner that they would support our application, and we submitted. And I suppose after review more in detail, we were informed that our application would not be supported. Not supported because of the green spaces being taken out. We have sidewalks, so I'm not supporting this application because of the green space does not really and truly address the green space in front, because the sidewalks are considered part of a green space. The zoning bylaw does not restrict hard surface such as concrete for sidewalks. So if the concern is that coverage of the front yard is too big, then there could be an option of permeable driveways with patio stones and so on to address this need. But then again, our concern is the safety. Even though it's not convenience is the safety of people driving out and waiting for the car to pull out.
Thank you very much. I think at this point, we should need a motion on the floor so the committee members can debate. And Member Hanna?
Just to keep things moving along, I'm going to actually support the staff recommendation to refuse. I actually support what the resident in the area is saying. I was by the site, and it certainly is not something that's in keeping with the character. I've actually been a little bit, I guess, harsh on staff in the past about similar applications, about approving them, and I think, again, if we are going to support infill, it should be done right. This one was approved with a single-car driveway with a single-car garage, and if it's built that way, it's perfectly functional.
Can I get a second for the motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. So, Member Gundam, now the floor is open for debate. I'm going to be in opposition of the motion on the floor. If we look through the neighborhood, there's the two properties that flank these two hardwood properties have double wide driveways. I think it's a little bit it meets the neighborhood character and it satisfies the four tests. So I'm going to vote in opposition to the motion on the floor. I hope my fellow members change their mind, the seconders and the mover, but I appreciate. Yep, Member Hanna.
I'm going to counter that just for a second, just to be on the record. The properties next door are all around 50 feet wide and double-car driveway 20 feet. And you still have about 60% of the front yard being lawn or landscaping. So this one is completely covered with asphalt.
I guess if there's no further debate, we'll put the motion to a vote. So all in favor of the motion on the floor, which, as a reminder, is to refuse. So Member Hanna, Member Gundram, and Member Santos in support of the motion, and then Member Pateman in opposition to the motion, and the application is refused. Okay, I apologize for that, everyone. So can we now have application A 2023-026? That'll be 74 Bomer Street. Can we have the applicant or agent please come forward? Thank you. And can I please have staff introduce this application?
Yes. Excuse me. Thank you, Chair. This is an application for a minor variance to facilitate the conversion of a detached garage into an additional dwelling unit. The variances that are required are a reduction of the minimum lot area, a reduction of the minimum lot width, and to permit the additional dwelling unit detached to be located 0.5 meters from the side or rear lot line instead of the minimum required 0.6 meters. Staff have reviewed the variances in light of the four tests of the Planning Act and finds that they meet all four and is recommending approval.
Thank you, staff. Has the applicant had an opportunity to review the staff report?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Sam Head with Dryden Smith and Head Planning Consultants. I've looked at the staff recommendation and I support the approval of the variances. I'd be happy to answer any questions for the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, applicant. At this point, okay, Member Hanna, you have the floor.
Yeah, just for clarification, that little bump out at the side for the cupboard, there's no windows on that particular wall?
I'm not sure. I haven't looked at all the sides of the garage. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll clarify that with staff. Thanks.
Yeah.
At this point, I ask any members of the public that may wish to make submissions to please come forward. No, chair satisfied. There's no members of the public to make comments. So did the applicant have any further comments he'd like to make the committee aware of?
No, we're just adding another unit to supply that 15,000 units we need for the province.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee.
Oh, sir. If this is to say, just in case there were questions. At this point, I ask my fellow members if they had questions of staff or the applicant. Yeah, Member Hanna.
Just for staff, are you aware whether the cupboard has a window?
am not aware, but through the building permit process, unprotected openings less than 1.2 meters from the lot line will be required to be removed.
Okay, thank you.
So at this point, unless there's further questions, I look forward to a motion on the floor. Member Gundry?
I'll put forward a motion to approve the application.
Thank you. Can I get a second? Member Santos, second. So the floor is open for debate. Any coming for debate? No? So all in favor of the motion on the floor? Yep, and passes unanimously, so thank you. At this point, could I please have the applicant or agent for application A 2023-027, that's the 295 Sheldon Avenue, please come forward, and momentarily, can I please have staff introduce the application?
Thank you, Chair. This is a minor variance application for 289-295 Sheldon Avenue North. Two minor variances, an increase in the maximum floor space ratio from 0.6 to 0.75, and a reduction of the side yard from 3 to 2.5 meters. This is to facilitate the redevelopment of the property with 40 dwelling units in the form of stacked townhomes. A site plan application has been submitted and has been reviewed by staff. Staff have reviewed the variances in light of the four tests of the Planning Act, and with respect to the site plan application, we find that they meet all four tests in the Planning Act and are recommending approval.
Thank you, staff. Has the applicant had an opportunity to review the staff report? Hope you have the little light. There you go.
Good morning, my name is Chris Mattson of Mattson Planning and Development, and I have with me one of the owners, Jeff Scarfone. Yes, we have reviewed the staff report in support of the recommendation, and also you'll note there's 3 letters of support from adjacent neighbors as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So at this point, I invite any members of the public that wish to make comments in support or opposition to please step forward. The chair is satisfied there's no one here to provide comments, so I open the floor to my fellow members to ask questions of the applicant, or the applicant wishes to make further submissions. Yeah. Member Gundry, I think he got it. He beat the gun.
Yeah, okay, sure, thank you. Through the chair, and perhaps this is a question for the applicant, and I'm not sure if this is something that would be deferred to the site plan stage, but was a noise study carried out for the proposed development, or will have to be carried out for the development? And I ask that due to the proximity to the highway, if there's any issues or concerns in that regard, so.
Yeah, we're going through the site plan approval process right now, approved in principle, and I actually can't recall if we did a noise study or not, Jeff.
A noise study has not been undertaken yet, but it will be a requirement under the condominium application through the Region of Waterloo.
Okay, thank you very much.
Member Hanna?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to staff, I just clarify the MTO permits will also be handled through the site plan process?
Yes, they most definitely will be and are be and have been, so it's confusing. MTO provided those comments to the committee.
Thank you. So if no other questions, I look forward to a motion to be put on the floor so we could debate. Yep, Member Santos?
I'll put the motion on the floor to approve.
Second for Member Santos' motion. Member Gundry seconds the motion, so the floor is open for debate. I have no problems. I'm happy. Member Hanna?
The only thing I want to say for the record is I think this is a very well-designed site, well done, and the variances are clearly minor.
Thank you.
Thank you, and for the great application. So I think if there's no further debate, ready to put this to vote. So all in favor of the motion on the floor? And the motion passes unanimously, and thank you for your application. I asked the applicant for application A 2023-028, that's 1005 Ottawa Street, to please come forward, and I ask that staff please introduce at their opportunity.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a minor variance application for 1005 Ottawa Street North. This is the Stanley Park Mall. The applicant is requesting 2 minor variances, one to reduce the Class A bicycle stalls from 7 to 0, and to reduce the minimum landscaped area from 20 to 11.4% to recognize existing conditions on the site. Staff are currently reviewing a site plan application to facilitate the redevelopment of the Stanley Park Mall with a new Canadian Tire store. Staff have reviewed the variances in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act and is recommending approval.
Thank you, staff. Has the applicant had an opportunity to review the staff recommendation and report?
Good morning, staff and committee. My name is Evan Sugden. I'm a senior planner with Bousfields. I'm the agent on behalf of the applicant and owner, First Capital, who are the to-be landowner or landlords for Canadian Tire. What we're proposing here is a very incremental redevelopment of the site. It is a previous Walmart box store that has been removed and is going to be replaced with a slightly larger footprint in the form of a new Canadian Tire franchise. Overall, and we can get into this if there are any questions, but there is just a general improvement to the site conditions as a result of this redevelopment. We have reviewed the staff report and agree with the recommendations, and I would note that there are no conditions assigned. As well, there have been no public comments received to date. Open to any questions and here to answer.
Thank you. At this point, I ask any members of the public that wish to make submissions to please come forward. The chair is satisfied that there's no one here today to provide comments, so I open the floor to my fellow members to ask questions of the applicant or staff. Member Gundrum.
Through the chair, just a quick question for Mr. Sugden. So, understanding that this is with respect to Class A bicycle parking, there still is some form of bicycle parking infrastructure that will be on the site, just not classified as Class A. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Through you, the chair, to Member Gondrum, there is a sufficient number of Class A bike parking, which are the outdoor ring-style bike parking spaces. There are no Type B parking spaces, which are intended to be long-term indoor storage, mostly related to multi-unit residential buildings, or in the non-residential case, things like offices. Canadian Tire has a very specific franchise requirement for their layout, and there are opportunities to bring staff bicycles, for example, into the building throughout the day by the store manager, so they can bring it into either the mechanic's shop or one of the staff rooms or one of the enclosed areas should they need, safety guaranteed for their bikes during their 8-hour shift or anything else. Patrons to the store would be able to use the outdoor bike parking like you would see outside in the front of a building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Hanna.
I have a quick follow-up for staff and then a question of the applicant. I think the applicant had things reversed in terms of Class A and Class B. Class A are the ones inside, Class B are outside?
Yes, Class A is a bicycle locker, a secured enclosed area and with controlled access, yes.
And just letting you know, Mr. Applicant, that I have no problems at all with the landscape variance that you're requesting. Very familiar with the mall because I do a lot of shopping at the Zayres. It's going to be a great addition. I'm struggling with the fact that, and I'm going to call it the cookie cutter design of Canadian Tire, not supporting at least a small room inside for, say, the lower wage employees to bring their bikes or walk or take transit. We're trying to encourage alternative modes of transportation, and yet in today's era, you're still kind of forcing your cookie cutter format. Why aren't you providing a room for staff for their bikes?
Through the chair, and thank you for that question. I would agree. You're right. I did reverse the order of the types of parking, but just to clarify, I'm a professional planner representing the land use, providing opinion on land use matters, and I'm not Canadian Tire. I'm just representing the owners of the land, First Capital, who are trying to get Canadian Tire as a tenant. And so Canadian Tire corporate has certain franchise requirements. But that being said, they are not proposing to include these indoor dedicated bike parking facilities, but have agreed to provide an assurance through their floor manager that employees can bring in their bikes and store them in a safe location. inside at all times, whenever they need. And as well, there is a proposed outdoor storage area, if you will, similar to you'd see at a Lowe's or a Home Depot, where they have agreed that there can be space set aside through, one of their sheds that can be dedicated for a bike or staff to park their bikes, and they can lock them inside. That way it's inside, it's in the monitored area and locked up for their shift. The other component to this too, I should add, is if there's a requirement for these indoor long-term bike parking storages to provide indoor shower facilities. And so one of the things that they have never done in Canada, and this is me relaying their franchise requirements, is that they don't provide these sort of spaces. And we can only go by what their franchise sets out. I don't get to dictate to them what they can do in that regard. But again, they've agreed to provide that additional space inside for employees to bring their bikes if they need to.
So unless my fellow members had any other questions, I look forward to a motion being put on the floor. Member Santos?
I'll make the motion to approve.
As with the amendments? Yeah.
As amended, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So can I get a second for Member Santos' motion? Member Gudrum seconds. Open the floor to debate. If there's any further, Member Hanna?
I'm going to lose this one, but I just want to go on the record again, as I think if we're trying to encourage alternative modes of transportation, Canadian Tire should step up to the plate. If we refuse this, guys, what it's going to mean is they're either going to appeal to the tribunal, they're going to modify their plans. I think we should force them to modify their plans, but I know I'm going to lose, so there you go.
Any further debate? No? Thank you, Member Hanna. So we'll put this to a vote. So all in favor of Member Santos' motion? All in favor? And then, so Member Santos, Gundrum, and Pateman, and then all opposed, Member Hanna opposed. So the motion carries, and it's been approved. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, can I please have the applicant for A 2023-029, that's 57 Barbera Crescent, please come forward. And can I have staff please introduce this application?
Yes, thank you, Chair. These are two minor variance applications for 57 and 59 Barbara Crescent. They are to facilitate the conversion of accessory structures in each of those rear yards into additional dwelling units detached. Variances are required for the reduction of the minimum lot area and minimum lot width for each of the lots. Staff have reviewed the variances in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act and finds that they meet all 4 and is recommending approval.
Thank you, staff. Has the applicant had an opportunity to review the staff report and recommendation?
Yes, I have.
Thank you. So at this point, I invite any members of the public that wish to make the submissions to please come forward. No, so I apologize. I thought you were going down. I got excited. So Chair is satisfied that no one is here to provide submissions. So I open the floor to my fellow members to ask questions of the applicant or staff. Member Hanna.
Just a quick question for staff, and just to put the applicant at ease, I have no problem with the intensification proposed, but when I drove by this site, it looked like about 90% of the front yard was parking again on both sides. Why is there not a variance required?
Thank you for the question. So the existing single detached dwellings on both of those lots were demolished in September of 2021. Building permits for the duplex dwellings and accessory structures in their driveways were approved and issued in November of 2021. The bylaw in effect at that time was zoning bylaw 85-1. So the development of the lots took place under that zoning bylaw. Its existing conditions with respect to the variances today that you see today for the reduction in lot width and area for the accessory structures.
Member Hanna.
Yeah, just to follow up then, the plot plan that I'm seeing, or the site plan on the back page, I would suggest that the driveways are wider now than what's approved, just as a cautionary note.
Staff did review the updated drawings to make sure that they were the same drawings that were submitted for building permit, and they were.
Thank you, staff. Does the applicant wish to make any submissions or comments to the committee at this point?
Just the comment I'd like to make is that we just completed the construction of these in December of this past year. We are waiting for the spring to complete the landscaping work, so that is why it is all gravel across the front of the buildings. We just haven't done the sodding yet.
Thank you. So at this point, I look forward to a motion on the floor so the committee members can debate. Member Gundry?
Actually, a question for the chair. We need separate motions for each application?
Madam Clerk or staff, do we need separate motions? Sorry? Yeah. Okay, so we need separate motions, so thank you, Madam Clerk. So can I... 57's first? So could I please get a motion for the 57 properties, so that'd be A 2023-029. Yep, Member Gundrim.
I'll put forward a motion to approve the application.
Can I get a second for Member Gundrim's motion? Member Hanna, thank you. So I open the floor to debate. I don't think there's going to be any debate. So all in favor of the motion on the floor? Passes unanimously, thank you. And then I appreciate Member Gundrim and Madam Clerk clarifying. And can I get a second motion for our 57 Crescent? Member Gundrim.
Through the chair, motion to approve the second application for 59 Barbara.
Thank you. And Member Hanna, second. Thank you. So I'm satisfied there's no debate, and I put this to another vote. So passes unanimously. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this point, I ask the applicant for A 2023-031, please come step forward. That's 299 Newbury Drive, and I ask that staff please introduce this application.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a minor variance application for 299 Newberry Drive. The variance is to facilitate the conversion of the single detached dwelling into a duplex. Requires 2 parking spaces. Unfortunately, the length of the garage does not meet the minimum requirements for a parking space. Accordingly, the required parking needs to be in the driveway. The variance is to permit that required parking space to be located 2.1 meters from the street property line instead of the minimum 6 meters. And staff have reviewed the variance in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act, finds that it meets all 4 and is recommending approval.
Thank you, staff. Has the applicant had an opportunity to review the staff report?
Yes, I have.
Thank you. So at this point, I ask any members of the public that wish to make submissions to please come step forward. The chair is satisfied there's no one here to provide submissions. And I ask the applicant if he has any comments that he wishes to make to the committee, that he does so now.
No comments, thank you.
Thank you. So I'll open the floor to my committee members. Any questions of staff or the applicant? No? So I guess we can get a motion on the floor, please. Yep, Member Hanna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a good intensification project. It won't look any different on the street, and yet there's a new unit being created, so I will fully support the staff recommendation.
Can I get a second? Member Gudrum, second. That was a great application, good intensification. And so I'm put this to a vote. All in favor of the motion on the floor? Passes unanimously, and thank you very much. At this point, can the applicant and or agent for A 2023-032 please come step forward? That's 22 Hebel Place, and I ask in the meantime that staff please introduce the application.
Thank you, Chair. This is another minor variance application to facilitate the conversion of a single detached dwelling into a duplex. The required parking is in the garage, and they propose to convert that to living space. So it's a variance to reduce the reduce the location of the parking space to be 0.5 meters from the street line instead of the minimum 6 meters. Staff have reviewed the variance in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act, finds that it meets all 4 and is recommending approval.
Thank you, staff. Has the agent or applicant had an opportunity to review the staff report?
Yes, I have.
Thank you. So at this point, I invite members of the public who wish to make comments, please step forward. Chair is satisfied there's no one here to provide comments. If the applicant has any points or comments they wish to make known to the committee, I welcome you. Nope, the light, you need the light. Thank you.
I don't.
No, thank you. So if my fellow members have any questions of staff or the applicant, Member Hanna?
Thank you. Just a quick question to the applicant. There weren't any internal plans produced for this one. I just want to clarify, is the garage or the front facade staying the same? So you're not sure if you're going to do something with the garage facade, like you're changing out the garage?
Yeah, we're not sure if it's, we're going to use the same entrance from the main door and partition it on the inside.
Okay, I would caution you that there's a requirement that you can't have two entrances from the street. That's why I'm asking the question. Can I clarify that with staff, if that's still a requirement?
Yes, this property is in 85-1, and that is a requirement at 85-1.
Okay, I would prefer to have seen some internal plans on this one, because we're guessing.
If there's no further questions, I look forward to a motion on the floor so we could debate. We need a motion so we could debate literally anything. If we want to debate, we just need a motion on the floor.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Member Santos. Can I get a second? Thank you, Member Gundrum. I guess I'll start debate. I think it's inconsequential with the multiple doors. I appreciate that it might violate the bylaw, but in the end of the day, we're looking at the parking spots, and I believe, and staff has pointed forward, that it meets the 4 tests. So I am in support of this. If there's any further comments of my members, we'll put it to a vote. Yeah, Member Hanna.
Yeah, just to have some fun with my fellow members. In the past, we've really always wanted to see internal layouts. We had an application last year where somebody was trying to put 2 doors in for a second unit. One of the policies that I've been hearing from staff is they want the dwelling to look like it is today, even though there's another unit. And without that knowledge, I don't know. I don't like it the way it is. I would suggest we defer it. If you decide to approve, I probably will vote against, because I would prefer to at least see some building plans. So,
Member Gundrum.
Through the chair, I do appreciate Scott's concerns here, but again, through to staff, my understanding then, based on your statements, is that the zoning bylaw would preclude them from having more than one front-facing entrance. Is that correct?
That is correct. So when they do come in for building permit, they will have to show one entrance at the front, and they will have to provide those drawings in order to get their building permit for the conversion.
Okay, thank you.
Member Santos.
Yeah, I appreciate what colleague and member Scott has to say about this. I would have liked to seen more information included with this package, but at hand here is just a reduction in parking, and to me, I'm happy with that, and it meets the 4 tests and has the approval of the city. So I will vote in favor of this. So, but I do appreciate what you said, Scott. I'd like to see more here.
I will open the floor to the applicant for further comment.
With regards to Mr. Scott's sort of question over there, I do agree. And are you suggesting that we defer it and come back with more detailed plans and deal with both those together?
can I respond to that, Mr. Chairman? I've been convinced by my fellow members to let this go through. I'm just cautioning the applicant that if they come back for a minor variance for 2 doors facing the street, I probably will be opposed.
And we are voting on the motion on the floor, which is to approve, just to remind everyone at the meeting today. So if there's any further debate, if there's no further debate, I open this to a vote, unless the applicant, you're...
Yeah, sorry, I just want to clarify this before I leave today. So if we do decide to have a second door where the garage is, how do we go about that?
I think that's to staff.
Can you clarify that, staff, that you will need a variance?
Yes, you will, excuse me, you will need a minor variance. So that is, if that is your intent, I would suggest that you defer the application and request the additional variance. I'm sure there'll be a deferral fee and a re-advertisement of the application, but if that is your intent, I would suggest asking the committee for a deferral.
Yeah, I just think, given the additional information, I think it might be best for us to defer and sort of reconvene on this and decide how we want to proceed and deal with both matters together.
So, Madam Clerk or staff, do we have to vote against the motion? Does the motion die? So we have to vote against the motion. Okay. Okay. Yeah,
Through you, Chair, sorry. So is that what the applicant wants, for us to
Yeah, I'm a little
vote this
confused,
down?
applicant, if you could.
Sorry, Ryan, we're just trying to understand over here. If we do defer it, does that mean just reapplying and paying the fees again?
Staff?
Through the chair, you would just be paying the deferral fee if you are requesting for deferral and the committee approves it. So you're not paying for the application fee again.
All right, I think we'll go with the deferral fee then.
Member Hanna?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's very simple. If the mover and the seconder would withdraw their motion on the floor, I am prepared to move a deferral motion.
Okay, sure.
So is my motion. So if that's what the applicant's looking for, I will withdraw my motion.
Okay, so can I get a motion for deferral? Member Hanna?
Yeah, motion for deferral?
Seconded by Member Gundrum, and I guess the staff? Do you have a comment?
Yes, so I would believe that you would have to give a date as to when this application would come back to the committee. I would suggest it's not going to make the next meeting if there's advertisement notice given. So I would suggest a 2-month deferral at least, and that would give the applicant some time to consider their plans and whether they need the additional variance. It's not known at this time. They don't know. I think they're just asking for the deferral to give themselves some time. If they do need the variance, they will pay the deferral fee and will re-advertise, and if they don't need the variance, we would reconsider the application coming back. Yeah.
Member Hanna?
Okay, so I'm prepared to move or modify my motion to defer this to the May Committee of Adjustment meeting.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that modified motion.
Okay, second by Member Gundrum. I'm assuming there's no debate here, but we'll put it to a vote. All in favor of the motion on the floor to defer for 2 months? It passes unanimously. So thank you, Mr. Applicant. At this point, I invite the applicant for A 2023-033, that is 364 Wellington, to please come forward, and I ask that staff introduce this at their opportunity.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is an application for 364 Wellington Street North. It is a minor variance application to permit a lot width of 12.1 meters instead of 13.1. and to permit a driveway material that is not consistent throughout the driveway. So he's proposing, or the applicant, rather, cement and grass rather than comprising of one material consistent throughout the entire driveway. Staff have reviewed the variances in light of the Fortassa Planning Act. It finds that it meets all 4. I would just clarify that the dwelling as it exists right now does contain 2 units, so they're adding a 3rd unit. I think it was advertised as a single, adding 2 units, but the 2 units already exist. They're just adding an additional unit. Staff, again, have reviewed the variance in light of the Fortassa, finds that it meets all 4, and as you know in the staff report, there is a condition that is required for Metrolinx.
Thank you, staff. Has the applicant had an opportunity to review the staff report and recommendation?
Yes, I have had an opportunity to review it. First, I'd like to thank the staff for their assistance in preparing my application. I had a million questions and they answered them all, so thank you. I accept what the staff has said, except I would ask the committee not to impose the conditions as specified by Metrolinx. There's a number of reasons I feel that they're onerous. One is I purchased the property in 2021 as a duplex. There were no conditions attached at that time. As well, I've spoken to the neighbors. None of the neighbors have this condition attached. So I would ask them not to impose those conditions.
Thank you. At this point, I ask any members of the public who wishes to make comments come forward. The chair is satisfied. There's no one here to provide comments, so I open the floor to the applicant if he had any further comments beyond the Metrolinx condition.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Sorry, did you have any further comments besides the Metrolinx condition?
No,
No? So I open the floor then to my fellow members to ask questions of the applicant and staff. Yep, Member Hanna, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of quick questions for staff for clarification. So the second part of the resolution that says to facilitate an additional dwelling unit to an existing single detached, you should probably change that to two-unit dwelling.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. And just for the committee's benefit, I fully support the applicant's position on the Metrolinx conditions. I've said that in the past. I think it's just, it's a cover-your-butt kind of conditions, and I don't think it's necessary. And I fully support the application. It's a good infill, and through Bill 23, you can now stack cars, so it's a long, wacky driveway, but there is enough parking there, so.
So thank you, and no further questions. I look forward to a motion on the floor, and then just reminder of Member Hanna's comment and the applicant's comment. Member Hanna?
Yeah, I'm prepared to move the recommendation of staff without the two conditions and with a modification to the wording to show it as an existing two-unit dwelling.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thanks, Member Gundrum, and thanks the applicant for bringing forward, and Member Hanna for moving and getting rid of this condition. If there's no further debate, we'll put this to a vote. Member Gundrum, or Member Santos?
Just before, just out of clarity, those Metrolinx conditions, were able to remove
that condition as an application, as a condition of the approval. Yep, Member Gundrum?
Just to follow from Brian's statements through the chair, and I guess this is a question more directed to staff. Metrolinx is a public agency. They're within their rights to provide comment to circulation under the Planning Act. In the event that we approve this without those conditions, then the application may be subject to appeal by Metrolinx. That's just a risk that we run by dropping their conditions, if staff could comment on that, so.
Yes, I can confirm that. So as a committee, you have the ability to impose conditions and not impose conditions. So if Metrolinx feels strongly about that inclusion, they have the right to appeal.
Thank you.
I don't think there's any further debate, so if we can put this to a vote with my fellow members. Everyone happy with putting this to a vote? Yeah? So all in favor? That passes unanimously, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
At this point, I ask A 2023-034, the applicant to please come forward, and that is 106 Chandler Drive, and I ask that the staff please introduce this application.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a minor variance application for 106 Chandler Drive. There are two minor variances that the applicant is requesting: a reduction of the minimum lot width from 19 to 16.1 meters, and a reduction of the minimum front yard from 8.6 to 5.6 meters. This is to facilitate the redevelopment of the property. An addition is proposed at the front, and the applicant would like to add 3 units to an existing 3-unit multiple for a total of 6 dwelling units on the subject property. Staff have reviewed the variances in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act and finds that it meets all 4 and is recommending approval.
Thank you, staff. Excuse me. I ask that the applicant, have they had an opportunity to review the staff report and recommendation?
Good morning. Yes, we have.
Yep, thank you. So at this point, I open the floor to any members of the public who wish to make submissions. The chair is satisfied that there's nobody here to provide submissions on this application, and if the applicant wishes to provide any comments to the committee, I open the floor to him. No, thank you. And now I open the floor to any of my fellow committee members to ask questions of staff and the applicant. Yep, Member Gundrum.
Through the chair, and just a general question, I guess in the course of review, there was no concern for the redevelopment being able to not meet parking requirements under the zoning bylaw? Given the doubling of the number of units here?
Yes, staff have reviewed a parking plan and are satisfied parking can be provided on site.
Thank you.
So I welcome a motion to be put on the floor for this application. Yeah, Member Hanna.
Yeah, I was initially a little concerned about the setback, but, because it may look a little bit out of place, but I actually hope this sets a precedent for the whole street where similar things happen. I think this is a great idea to add units, going from 3 to 6. A lot of the other units along the street are assuming are triplexes and probably could do the same thing. So this is wonderful, and so I fully support the staff recommendation.
We need a motion, Member Han. Sorry.
How about I fully support the staff recommendation?
Okay, thank you. Can I get a second for fully support? I like it. Yeah, Member Gundrum, he fully supports too. And given, if I'm satisfied there's no debate, we're ready to put this to a vote. So all in favor of the motion on the floor? Yep, and it passes, so thank you very much. So at this point, can I please have the agent or applicant for A 2023-035 please come forward? That is 12 Orchard Mill Crescent. And then staff, when you're ready, to please introduce this application.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a minor variance application for 12 Orchard Mill Crescent. The applicant would like to convert the existing single-detached dwelling to a duplex. The existing garage is proposed to remain. However, it cannot be considered the legal parking space due to the presence of stairs at the rear of the garage. So the applicant is requesting the required parking space be in the driveway. Instead of being 6 meters from the street lot line, it would be 2.4 meters. Staff have reviewed the variance in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act, finds that it meets all 4 and is recommending approval.
Thank you, staff. Can I have the applicant and agent please provide their name and whether or not they've had an opportunity to review the staff report and recommendation?
Morning, committee members and staff members. Yes, we have reviewed the staff report and request the approval for the same. And the existing of the stairs was prior to the new ownership. My client bought the house, and we really want to convert this into a second dwelling unit in the basement, and we request you for the approval of the same.
Thank you. Can I just get your name, Mr. Adrian?
Yeah, it's Malav Shah, engineering manager from Blueprints Permit.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, did you get that? Yep. Thank you. So I open the floor to my fellow members to ask any questions of the applicant and staff. Nope, I'm satisfied there's no questions. Nope. And so we put a motion on the floor.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Can I get a second for this, Mr. Santos? And then Member Gundrum second. Open the floor to debate. I don't think there's any debate, so we can put it to a vote. So all in favor of the motion on the floor? And it passes unanimously. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
At this point, can the applicant for A 2023-036 please come forward? That's 183 Ottawa Street South, and can staff please introduce this application?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a minor variance application for 183 Ottawa Street South. There are 2 minor variances that the applicant is requesting to permit a multiple dwelling having 8 dwelling units to have 0 parking spaces instead of the minimum required 10, and to permit 0 visitor parking spaces instead of the minimum 20% or 2 parking spaces. And this is to facilitate an additional 3 dwelling units to the existing multiple residential building containing 5 dwelling units. Staff have reviewed the variances in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act, finds that it meets all 4 and are recommending approval.
Thank you, staff. Has the applicant had an opportunity to review the staff report?
Yes, I have.
And then can you just state your name for Madam Chair?
Ron Rogan.
Thank you. At this point, I open the floor to any members of the public that wish to come forward to provide comments. The chair is satisfied there's no one here to provide comments, so if the applicant wishes to make any comments to the committee, I welcome anything you may have to say.
No, thank you.
No, thanks. So I open the floor to my fellow members to ask questions of the applicant or staff. Member Gundrum?
Through the chair, and in reading the staff report, my understanding is that there's a previous minor variance in 2004 that reduced required parking down to 1 space. I just wanted to have staff, they could clarify the details of that before we look to make a decision. So, yeah.
Yeah, so similar application to what you're saying today. To permit 5 dwelling units, the parking was reduced to 1 and the parking space within the building. However, with this new application, the applicant is proposing to use that indoor parking space for Class A bicycle parking. So it is no longer viable for a parking space, so that is why the variance is being reduced to 0.
Thank you, staff, and just through the chair, I guess on that, the site has functioned for quite a period of time with a severe reduction to the required parking and zoning regardless, so I guess in my mind, this is really just a very minor variance to an existing situation, so, yeah.
Thanks, Member Hanna.
Just a quick question for staff. The report is very clear that this site is within the major transit station area. I'm guessing that the bylaw hasn't caught up. I'm just kind of curious, if the new bylaw was put in place on this property, would 0 parking be required?
Through you, Chair. The property is still in 85-1. The city has commenced planning in the MTSAs, or major transit station areas, is looking at parking requirements for residential and commercial uses in the station areas. There is a proposal on the table to reduce it to 0, but that has not been approved. It's still within in the engagement period, but certainly we are encouraging reduction of parking in our station areas.
On that note, I'm going to support my colleague. I think this is something that ultimately will not require any parking through the city's wisdom, and I agree it's been there for a while and seems to be functioning, so.
Thank you. So I look forward to a motion being put on the floor. Member Gundry.
Through the chair, I'll put forward a motion to approve the application.
Thank you, and then seconded by Member Hanna. Thank you, and open the floor to debate. Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to vote in favor of this only because it's been running this way already for a while. We're going from 1 to 0, but otherwise it's a bit of a weird one. But given it's already working that way, I'll vote in favor.
Yeah, it's a little weird, I agree, but it works, so I guess we'll put this to a vote. So all in favor of the motion on the floor? All in favor? Passes unanimously, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this point, I ask the applicant for B 2023-007, please come forward. That's 63rd Avenue. And as he's coming down, can staff please introduce this application to the committee?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry, just getting my notes together.
Don't worry. I was doing it all day.
We're getting into the consent applications where there's a number of changes and revisions. This is a consent application for the property at 63rd Avenue. Currently, there is a single detached dwelling on one half of the property under construction. The applicant would like to sever the property to facilitate the redevelopment of the other half of the property. Staff have reviewed the application in light of provincial, regional, city policies and finds that it meets all of those and is recommending approval. I'm just going through the regional conditions, and I believe this one has a modified condition for noise that I had suggested wording that it's a noise warning clause be registered on title to just advise of noise from the highway. I'll just get the wording here. Yes, so the applicant would enter into an agreement with the Region of Waterloo for the sovereign and retained lands that includes noise warning clause in all offers of sale, lease, and rental. There could be sound levels above what is acceptable due to increased road traffic and may interfere with some of the dwelling occupants and their use of the property. So staff can provide that wording to the clerk, but that is only the additional condition that's requested.
Thank you, staff. Has the applicant had an opportunity to review the staff report?
Good morning. Yes, I've had a chance to read the staff report, and I agree we are okay with that clause.
Thank you. And then can you just provide your name for the record, please?
My name is Boban Jokanovic.
Thank you. And at this point, I open the floor to any members of the public to make comments or submissions. The chair is satisfied there's no one here to provide comments or submissions, so at this point, I open the floor to my fellow members to ask questions of staff or the applicant. Yeah, I do have a question on this one. This is a pretty low-traffic neighborhood. I'm just a little confused. This is your boilerplate language, more or less, for the said noise?
Thank you. I'm just going to confirm that in terms of the regional comments, this may be one that they didn't require.
I just...
Yep.
They Region wants it in?
They did advise that it was within 200 meters of the provincial highway, and that was the reason for the noise warning clause.
Okay, I see. Okay. I have no further questions, so I guess I look forward to a motion. And then can the person who moves the motion please advise if they're including the noise condition for Madam Clerk? Member Santos.
I'll make that motion, including that condition regarding noise.
Thank you. And then can I get a second for Member Santos' motion? Member Hanna, second. Thank you. We're open to debate. I guess the noise, on 3rd Avenue, right? That's because the 7 is just beside. I forgot about that. Okay, so thank you. If there's I don't think there's any debate unless Member Hanna has something to say.
I just want to comment that I would probably have pulled that condition from the noise because I was there to see the site, and it's a considerable distance from Highway 8. But the applicant's agreeable, and it's really only just warning clauses on title, so I will support it.
I, like Member Hanna, would personally prefer not to have that noise condition, but if you guys are ready to go, we have a motion on the floor.
You can amend the motion, right? Or want me to amend the motion?
Yeah, I personally prefer that.
Okay, I'll amend the motion not to include the noise condition.
Thank you. I'm happy. So, good debate.
I will second. I'll second that new motion.
Thank you, Member Hanna. So I think we're ready to put this to a vote now. So absent the noise condition, and as recommended by staff, all in favor of the motion? All in favor? Passes unanimously. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Han.
At this point, can I have the applicant for B 2023-008 please come step forward? That's 243 Victoria, and could I please have staff introduce this application?
Yeah, so there are two applications for consent before you this morning. The first application is to sever a piece of land 9.4 meters by 41.4 meters with an area of 389 from the property from 243 Victoria Street. This would be a lot addition to the adjacent property at 239 Victoria Street South. Staff have recommended, have reviewed the application in light of city, regional, provincial policy and finds that it meets all of those and is recommending approval subject to a number of conditions. To note, staff have not included the regional conditions as they appear to pertain to the site plan application for 235-239 Victoria Street, which is not the subject of this consent application. The second consent application you have before you is to create an access easement on the lands at 241 to 243 Victoria Street, and that would be in favor of the property at 239 Victoria Street South. So staff have reviewed that consent application in light of policies and is recommending approval subject to a few conditions.
Thank you, staff. Has the applicant had an opportunity to review the staff report and recommendation?
Good morning. Yes, I have.
Thank you. And then can you state your name for Madam Clerk?
Scott Patterson from Patterson Planning Consultants.
Thank you. So at this point, I open the floor to any members of the public that may wish to make submissions. The chair is satisfied there's no one here to provide submissions, so I open the floor to my fellow members to ask questions of staff and the applicant. Member Hanna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through to the applicant. This is a very unique application, one of which it seems to relate to something that we haven't seen yet, and that's an application at 239. There's got to be something going on, and you need an access easement to it, but I can't see why. Is there anything more you can add to the committee about what's going to happen at 239?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, and good morning, committee. There is a site plan application that has been submitted for the combined development of 239 and 235 Victoria Street, and these lot addition lands that would be added to it. That site plan cannot receive approval in principle because we don't have the lot addition completed yet, so the properties aren't conjoined yet to receive that approval. But there is a development proposal for a 6-story residential apartment building on those lands. At this time would have a dual access, an access from Victoria Street to a main level parking, and this access easement through the conveyed lands would lead us to an underground parking structure as part of that project as well. That site plan application is under full review by city staff. I believe approval in principle would be imminent, subject to completion of this process.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I'll make some comments just for the committee's benefit for future applications. So,
Thank you. So we're going to need, if there's no further questions, we need two motions on this application. So I look forward to a motion from my fellow members. Member Hanna.
for the sake of putting the motions on the floor, I'll move both, and we'll deal with them one at a time.
Second, Member Santos, thank you. Member Hanna, can you clarify what your point was? I went right over my head.
Yeah, I'm just making a comment for staff. I mean, ultimately, I think this is a reasonable application. It's a lot addition going to provide for a future development and providing an access easement to a future development. It would be nice if we actually saw, at least conceptually, why we're approving the consents, because then I have a better picture of if it works or not. I'm now approving a consent for access for something that I don't know what's going to happen. That's just my point.
No, thank you, Member Hanna. I appreciate that. If there's any further debate, we can put this to a motion. Are we voting on both motions at the same time? Is that what we've done? Madam Clerk? Separately. So we're voting. Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. We're voting on, oh my goodness, 008. So all in favor of 008? 008 passes unanimously. And then can I get a motion for 009?
I had made that original motion. Can we duplicated it, but I'll put it back on the floor again.
Yeah, thank you. So Member Hanna moves, and can I get a second for 009? Member Gundrum seconds, and I'm assuming no debates, so we'll put it to a vote. All in favor of 009, and it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you, my fellow members, for clarifying procedural things. Much appreciated. So the next application, give me 1 second. Can I have application B 2023-012, that's 160 Weaver Street West, and can I please have staff introduce this application?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is an application for consent for a property at 160 Weaver Street West. The applicant would like to sever the property into two separate parcels to facilitate the development with two single detached dwellings. The application has been reviewed in light of provincial, regional, and city policies and finds that it meets all of those. And we are recommending approval subject to a number of conditions. In this application, regional conditions were not included with the staff report. Since that time, we've been working to revise the conditions and are recommending that a condition be added for, again, noise warning clauses for traffic on Weber Street and the rail behind the property.
Thank you, staff. Has the applicant had an opportunity to review the staff report?
Good morning, John Kremer here, one of the owners. Yes, I have.
Thank you, and then can you just state your name for the record and Madam Clerk?
John Kremer.
Thank you. And at this point, I open the floor to any members of the public who wish to make comments. The chair is satisfied there's no comments, so I now open the floor to my fellow members. Member Hanna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Conditions, I believe it's 14 and 15 about Metrolinx. I'm assuming you're okay with them, or would you prefer that we delete those?
I'm okay with them, yeah.
You are okay? Okay.
Follow-up question.
Follow-up question for staff. When I looked at the original conditions recommended by the region, I thought there would be 3 noise warning clauses for both the railway and traffic, and also an access permit. Because I believe Weber is a regional road? No.
Yes, so going through, so we didn't include the conditions. We were hoping they would be updated, so that one was missed. So in terms of what the region was requesting in their initial conditions was the regional consent review fee of $350, obtain required access permit, so that one should be included. And number 3 was final approval, attain approval of regional work permit for regional corridor management for any works within or abutting the region's road right of way. And then the 4th condition did relate to noise, and that was the revised one that I read out to you with the application. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Again, I know that the applicant has, is okay with conditions 14 and 15, but I think he's going to realize he's into a quagmire when he tries to fulfill those. So I would prefer that we move this, if we are, removing 14 and 15, and I have no objection to the regional conditions. I think they're reasonable, given that we back onto a spur line.
Can I get a motion on the floor so we can debate? Yep.
I will put that motion on the floor to support the staff recommendation, subject to the removal of conditions 14 and 15, and adding the 4 new conditions that staff were nice enough to introduce.
Seconded by Member Santos. Open the floor to debate. Thank you, Member Hanna, for removing 14, 15. I fully support that. So unless anyone else had anything to say, put it to vote. We're happy. So all in favor of Member Hanna's motion on the floor? Passes unanimously. So thank you very much.
Okay, I have taken over the role of chairman because of the conflict, and our next application is, I don't have the number in front of me, but it is 709 Glasgow, a consent for severance. If staff could introduce the application and the applicant come forward. I know that there's a lot of public interest in this particular application, and I know there's going to be a lot of speakers. So again, just reminding you to be short and brief with your comments. We have read all of your material. I can attest to that. I did it all last night and this morning. I'm sure my other members did as well. And when you come forward, if somebody has said the same thing you have, just said I reiterate what somebody has said. That'll help us. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application for consent and minor variance for 709 Glasgow Street. The application for minor variance is to permit a minimum lot width of 20 meters instead of 24 meters, and this will facilitate the severance of a new building lot under application for consent. Staff have reviewed the application. There were a number of studies, reports submitted to support and justify the new lot. One of those was a tree preservation and enhancement plan, or a tree management plan. This was an inventory of the vegetation and trees on the property. The submission of the report was to demonstrate that there was a building envelope available on a new lot there. Staff is satisfied that there is a building envelope there, probably not in the location as shown on the drawing. The location of that was shown on the concept plan would likely require a minor variance as well for front yard setback, which is not before you today. Staff is recommending approval of the consent application with the condition that an agreement be registered on title to require an updated tree preservation enhancement plan at the time that the building plans are known for what is proposed for the severed parcel. This will ensure that the building is in the proper location, the driveway review will be done at that time as well. And so staff, and this is also to ensure that if the property gets sold, any new purchaser that picks up the property would have to prepare that updated tree preservation plan for any model of home that they propose on that severed parcel. So with those conditions in mind, it also requires that the tree preservation enhancement plan be updated. The driveways will have to be removed from the severed parts, as well as the retaining walls, the armored retaining walls. So a driveway will have to be relocated onto the retained lands. So before those works can happen, staff is also requesting that the tree preservation enhancement plan be submitted and reviewed by staff before any site alteration happens in that regard. So with that in mind, staff have reviewed the application, is satisfied that there is a building envelope there, and is recommending approval of the application for consent and minor variance subject to a number of conditions. In addition to that, I should note that there is some changes to the regional conditions as they were not received in time. Noise warning clause was one of them, and I can review and see if there's any additionals.
Thank you very much for that. Just for the applicant, can you confirm that you have received the staff report, reviewed it, and if you have any concerns or questions?
Yes, I have reviewed. My name is Nicolette Van Ooyen. I'm with MHBC Planning and concur with the recommendations of the staff report.
Okay, at this point in time, I'm going to invite members of the public to come forward one at a time and state their name for the Secretary Treasurer and provide us with your comments, either in favor or against.
Thank you. My name is Kate Lawson. I'm here with my partner, Bruce Wise. We are the owners of 697 Glasgow Street, the property immediately adjacent to this proposed severed lot to the east. We did send a written report on Sunday, and I'm very glad to hear that you have all read it. And I want to just reiterate some of the major points that we made today. Our key concern is the preservation of the woodland shared by us and the proposed severed lot. The site of the proposed building envelope on the severed lot would destroy a section of this woodland, would cut trees on the border of our property, and through grading, excavation, erosion, and drainage problems, damage the ecosystem, we believe. Point one, we did receive the staff report, and we do note the idea that a different proposed building site may be required. The whole sum and substance of our concerns is that the building envelope site be located adjacent to the street or where the current driveway is, and not on in the site of the mature forest, which is where the site plans show. We don't, frankly, understand the city procedures to understand how such a requirement can be made. I know it's not your job to tell us, but this is something that we have been really struggling with, and certainly if the applicant's representative could tell us today that a different building envelope site will be chosen not in the middle of a mature forest, I could probably just end now. I'll go on. Concern two. Timelines. We've really struggled to read this 30-page technical report. We're laypersons. We don't have the expertise to understand the bylaws and so on. We've had only a brief chat with a lawyer. We did have an environmental consultant tell us that he would provide an expert opinion on this area being part of a significant or locally significant woodland according to Official Plan 7C-219, but he could not do that by today. Similarly, we had an environmental consultant tell us he'd be happy to provide an expert opinion on protected and endangered species and so on, but could not get that information until spring. And he talked about reptile breeding seasons. Like, I can't repeat that. These are only two examples of how this very short timeline is dramatically affecting us, and we believe our ability to respond properly, and therefore we have concerns about procedural fairness. Let me also just say that the property line is not marked, so we're really having trouble even on the ground seeing where this building envelope is. Concern 3 is the one detailed in the report as concern 8 about protected, significant, endangered, and at-risk species, and we wonder if an environmental impact study is required and at what point that is demanded by the city. Point 4, on page 13 of our report speaks to, page 13 of the applicant's report speaks about reducing adverse impacts to existing trees on the adjacent property to the east. We are really puzzled by our neighbors planning to cause any adverse impacts whatsoever to our property. Point 5. The Kitchener City Tree Management Policy, as you know, talks about minimizing adverse impacts and optimizing the benefits regarding trees, that the applicants must offer a rationale to justify tree removal, and also to provide information on grading. That is not provided in the report we've been given. The report claims on page 13 that consideration has been given to maintaining as many trees as possible, to protecting and conserving healthy trees, that tree removals have been minimized. In fact, the proposed building envelope site requires cutting 36 healthy trees. So in what sense is any of this actually minimizing and maintaining trees? Or again, the applicant's report, section 4.1 says, it was determined that a total of 36 trees require removal. Required how? According to what rationale or criteria? Also, the report section 4.1 talks about removing, quote, a number of trees along the easterly property limit of the vicinity, in the vicinity of the proposed building envelope to facilitate construction. Are these more trees in addition to the 36 named? We don't know. 4.1 continues. The existing trees in the neighboring property to the east, so that's our property, are intended to supplement tree removals. We find this claim utterly baffling, that we, the owners of 697 Glasgow Street, are being made responsible for remediating damage to trees caused by the owners of 709 Glasgow Street. That section goes on to say that existing trees in the neighboring property to the east, my property, will maintain buffering and privacy for the adjacent residential property to the east, my property. This just seems completely illogical to us, that our trees are going to buffer and maintain privacy for our trees. They simply are our trees. It's deeply mystifying, this claim. Point 6. 3312 requires a detailed vegetation plan with grading information, trees marked as save, remove, transplant, a drip line, woodland edges, protective measures. None of that is provided to us. The official plan 8C216 requires a tree management plan identifying individual trees proposed to be removed, justifying the need for removal, and mitigative measures. We've not been provided with any of this information. Point 7, to minimize tree removals as much as possible, we suggest to our neighbors, just choose another location on this large lot, what they term the relatively flat grassed front lawn area, or the driveway and stone retaining wall area. Either would seem to require minimal grading and minimal tree loss. Point 8, grading. In our report, in our written report, please look at the photographs on page 6. This is our layman's understanding. There is a slope up from our property and a slope down towards the existing neighbor's property. Grading will have to take place. Excavation and grading will have devastating impacts on the forest and, I believe, on our property. No information on grading is provided in the report, even though, as I say, it's required by the tree management plan and the detailed vegetation report. When will we see this grading information, and how do we have a chance to respond? My final point is what I'm calling missing, misleading, or inaccurate statements regarding what is called neighborhood Westmount neighborhood compatibility. Report section 3.2 states that front yard setbacks fall within the range of other lots in the Westmount area. There's no information on the report on what this range is, what addresses are being considered, or the streets being referenced. This section also says that the, quote, proposed larger front yard setback, for the proposed building envelope is in keeping with the existing homes fronting the south side of Glasgow Street. In fact, of the 14 homes on the south side of Glasgow Street between Nell Drive and Westwood Drive, only 2 houses have this deeper setback, that is the subject property, and their neighbors to the west, 715 Glasgow. The average front yard setback is about half what we estimate. We think the larger setback is about 80 meters. The average setback's more like 30 to 40 meters. The rear yard setback for the proposed building envelope is not mentioned in the report, but it is closer to the back front property line than any other lot fronting the south side of Glasgow Street. So our conclusion is that there's not credible evidence to support the claim of, quote, compatibility with the Westmount area. In summary, then, we believe that the choice of building envelope, far from minimizing harm, requires excessive tree cutting, adverse impacts to existing trees on the subject property and on our property, and unspecified damages caused by grading, excavation, erosion, and drainage. We hope that these kinds of damages are not countenanced or allowed by the City of Kitchener official plan and tree management policy, and so we ask that whatever you do today, please ensure protection for the woodland generally and protection for our property as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for your comments, very thorough. Members of the committee, do you have any questions for the delegate? Seeing none, I will be asking several questions of staff and the applicant to assist you. And we've heard a lot from this applicant about trees, grading, drainage, impact, compatibility, so hopefully the next speaker will be shorter.
Absolutely. Judy Ann Chapman, contact for the Greenbelt Neighborhood Association. That has had discussions, not with your group, but with City Hall a lot over the 4 decades that we've been around. I support the request of the owners of 697 Glasgow Street for a deferral, or I should say, our standard policy is we circulate to all our residents. The time frame did not permit that. I was only able to circulate to those who have been active on our last one at 400 Westwood, which is not coming your way, I don't think. Anyway, I support the request of owners of 697 Glasgow Street for a deferral of the decision to sever 709 Glasgow until there is a relocation of building envelope to a location that minimizes impact on the mature forest of 709 Glasgow and the 697 Glasgow Street property of the immediate neighbors to the east. I support the Kitchener planning staff that no tree cutting be performed until there is approval for it. And that's on both the existing property, which is going to need a driveway, and currently the diagram shows 5 trees being cut. No excuse, you got lots of wide open area, and on the planned severed lot. Since the new building location may require approval of other minor variances, it seems to me premature to approve the severance with minor variance now. I support in principle the minor variance to maintain existing zoning for the severed plot. It is the timing of this approval that is questioned before we have proper accounting of what is going to happen, especially to 697. I support the use of the existing driveway to access the new house. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your comments. Any questions from the committee? Thanks very much. Others in the gallery who wish to provide comments for the committee? Okay, seeing none. Applicant, do you have any response to what you've heard?
Just wanting to reiterate that the proposed consent plan shows a conceptual building envelope. So there is opportunity here to still work with staff. Obviously, the staff report indicates the conditions include a tree management plan that has to be approved by the city along with grading and drainage plans. So the city is in control of that situation. They will have to approve what is proposed. So the applicant is going to work with the city to get a proper building envelope, and basically, we've got very large lots in this location. The retained lands are 4 times the size of a lot, of the minimum required lots size required in that zoning category. The proposed severed lot is still double the size of a regular lot in that area. And in addition, the tree survey that was done only surveyed a portion of the property that was, in close relation to the proposed building envelope, and surveyed 211 trees. That's a lot of trees on a city lot, 36 of which will be removed, some of them healthy, some of them not so much. So, in the scope, in the bigger scheme of things, I'm thinking, this is an appropriate course of action. And as I said, the tree saving plan will be adjusted. We are willing to work with staff to get a building envelope that everyone can agree on, and tree management plan will be adjusted accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the committee for either the applicant or staff? I have several for the applicant. I drove by the site yesterday, and I kind of support what some of the neighbors are saying about a different configuration for this intensification project. I have a little sketch here for you that I think a flag-shaped lot would work a heck of a lot better, where you would create a parcel to kind of the northwest, where the flat area, you'd be able to keep your driveway and most of what exists on the current property without any damage to any trees. And I just want to know, have you considered that?
No, our client hadn't considered that. They were really, I don't know, if you walk the property, it's where we have the proposed house situated, adjacent to the existing house, creates a really beautiful environment. The rear yard is spectacular with a lot of trees, many, the ones that aren't even shown on the tree saving plan. And it also creates this really nice buffer from Glasgow Street, which is a busy road, as you know. So, once you kind of head up that driveway, you don't hear the traffic, you don't see the road. And so we have thought that through a fair bit. So that wasn't a consideration, but I mean, yeah, we didn't look at that.
Okay. I'm just saying that based on 35 years in planning, and if I would have done this, I would have done it completely different. So right now, I'm negative to what you want. The other suggestion by the residents was that there be a deferral to have some more dialogue. Have you considered that?
Yeah, we're not in support of a deferral because we feel like we've done all the legwork, and we concur with the staff report recommendations that require us to work with city staff to get a proper, tree saving plan that everybody's in agreement with. We're really just, looking for the creation of a lot that more than meets area requirements, and work with city staff on the process. Through the process, that's our main objective. So we're not in support of a deferral. We don't see the need for it. I don't know what that's going to achieve.
Okay, I just have a follow-up for staff too. Could you, just for the purpose of giving the residents some comfort in case the committee does approve this application, that things like grading and drainage and tree protection, et cetera, will be handled through the permit process?
Yes, so the applications before you are an application to create a new building lot. So staff reviewed the plans and justification that was submitted to understand whether there is a building lot here. Is there some developable area on this portion of the property? Given our review of the tree management plan that was submitted, there is a building envelope. It may, as I said, not be in the location. It's probably not in the location as indicated on the conceptual plan. And we are not, and the applicant has not provided what those house plans may be, what those building plans are going to be. The lot could be sold. There could be a new person that comes and picks up that property, has a different vision for it. Once you create the lot, it is conveyable, not just to this person, but to future property owners. So staff have included a condition which requires an updated tree preservation enhancement, a tree management plan. So when those building plans are known, we will review that updated tree plan to make sure that what is ever proposed for the severed lands will work, have the least impacts, and will be compatible in terms of its situation or location on the property as well. As I noted, we do have front yard setback requirements, so not knowing what the model of the home is, not knowing where the building envelope is in relation to the trees, there could be a minor variance that's required to the front yard setback to facilitate whatever future plans are for the severed parcel. So what I can say at this point in time in terms of the application and what staff reviews, staff is reviewing the application to ensure that there is a building envelope here to support a severance and a future single detached dwelling in this location. Because those building plans aren't known at the time, that's why we are including that condition to require the updated tree management plan. So when they are known, staff will be reviewing that plan to ensure minimal impacts, hopefully no impacts to adjacent trees, and that it will work in terms of grading and drainage as well. That's part of the... In terms of what the applicant was required and what we reviewed, we are satisfied that there is a building envelope on this property.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff or the applicant? Committee member Dade?
Through the chair, thank you for the thorough application, staff, and also thank you to the residents for providing your concerns. I guess we've kind of already gone over the matter regarding the trees and the possible impacts to the site with regards to I'll call them natural features, even though they're not as such recognized in policy. I guess a question for staff is on the compatibility with the neighborhood. Are there any design guideline policies that apply here, given the area that this property is in? Like, I guess concern that I have sometimes when you're taking, this is almost like an estate lot that's in the city, and you're going to suggest carving it up, whether it's a flag-shaped lot or a regular shaped lot or otherwise, just partitioning that frontage, realigning the existing driveway. This cleared the OP in your review, did it not? Is there anything that one could grab onto in the OP that would, I guess, be in opposition to what they're looking to do here?
Yeah, so our zoning bylaw incorporates what Member Hannah has always referred to as the Rianne study, which was done of our central neighborhoods to ensure that new infill developments were compatible in their location on new properties or new lots. So this property is subject to that zoning bylaw regulation for the front yard setback to ensure that the new building will be compatible in terms of the streetscape and its alignment on the street. There have been a number of severances in the areas. There's redevelopment opportunities in this Glasgow area. It's an urban area, but cognizant that there are some trees and locally significant trees not identified in the official plan, but in terms of the way this area has stabilized and established itself over a number of years, there is an opportunity to allow some infill in this location while maintaining the character and streetscape in terms of the trees and setbacks.
So just to follow up to that, it's staff's opinion that breaking up this frontage doesn't get in the way of upholding any policies in the OP that regard streetscape. We're looking at a realignment, adding a new driveway. You'd have two driveways, the existing being shunted to the east, I believe, in future. So in staff's opinion, this conforms to the OP policies that would come to bear.
Yes, the file planner reviewing the application felt that it did meet city policies in the official plan and was recommending approval on that basis.
Thank you.
In a minute, staff, I'm going to be asking the committee, and I can't move a recommendation as a chair, to put something on the floor for debate. I look forward to the debate, but can you very clearly identify for the committee what recommendation you're asking us to approve? Because there's changes to it, so let's be really clear.
So in terms of the conditions that you see in the report, all the conditions, there's no changes to the 15 conditions as noted in the report. What there is a change to is the regional conditions. just want to make sure I have the right file here. Bear with me. So for 709 Glasgow Street, the region was requiring the regional consent fee, which I believe was included in the 15 conditions, the valid 59, Section 59 notice, again, which was included in the conditions, and the third condition that the region was requiring was a condition related to noise, which staff have amended to just include warning clauses. So their third condition in their original submission, staff is recommending that it just be a noise warning clause in an agreement registered with the region.
Okay, can I get a motion on the floor? David?
Through the chair, and I am having a tough time with this one, but given that you've indicated to us that this conforms to the OP, it meets all the applicable zoning regulations that would come to bear, I'm having a tough time with it from a possible streetscape perspective. Also knowing that Ms. Van Oyen said that, you know, this is a concept building footprint, that could be subject to change. The lot could be conveyable in the future. There are some unknowns here, but I have faith in the city that through your policies that, you know, if one were to come in with a building permit in future, that it, you know, there would be consideration for appropriate preservation of trees on the property. So given I have hesitation, but I will make a motion to approve the application with the recommended conditions.
Can I get a seconder? You can second it and still refuse it if you want to. I just need to get it on the floor.
I'll second it to get on the floor.
Okay, let's debate.
Yeah, through you, the chair. I would love to see this as a deferral. I appreciate the applicant, what they've had to say, and also hear the comments of the residents and read all the letters. I know there's an opportunity for infill here, but I'm not sure what's been proposed is perhaps best use here. There's a lot going on as far as change of driveway, streetscape, grading. I'd just love to see more information here. There's just a lot of unknowns, and I'm just uncomfortable how to proceed. I do appreciate that the city has put this to it for approval, but I would like to see more information.
Thank you for those comments. I share those comments. First of all, I want to make it clear to the applicant that I believe that there is room for another lot on this parcel. I don't believe what is being proposed is the right way of going about it, unfortunately. I realize through staff that the building envelope could change, and it better, because it's probably the worst location on the site to put it currently. I believe there are two other opportunities that should be considered for this site. One is a flag lot. I can show the applicant after the meeting what I have in mind. The other would be to simply increase the width of the severed parcel, because if they move the building envelope forward, kind of in line with, I'm going to say 697, which is the neighbor we heard from, which would fit the streetscape, I think there needs to be a wider envelope there. And so the bylaw requires 24 meters. Why aren't they proposing a 24-meter wide lot and tapering it back beside the house? And therefore, we don't even have to deal with the application. So I will be voting against what's on the floor. I would be happy to move a deferral, but I'm not going to support what's on the floor. David?
Through the chair, and I know this is a bit unorthodox, but I think given statements by my fellow members, I'd like to respectfully withdraw my motion to approve.
Can I get the second on the withdrawal? Okay, we need another motion. And I'm looking to you gentlemen.
I'll make a motion to defer this matter to a later meeting. I'm just not sure how much time is needed to get
Yes, I would respectfully ask for the reason of deferral, about what would be the purpose of the deferral, so staff knows why the application is deferred, and so we can work to resolve whatever the reason for the deferral is.
Can I assist? I think we should defer, members, to allow for consideration of alternative configurations for the lot fabric and alternative locations for the building envelope.
And I'll second the motion to defer on that basis.
All those in favor of the deferral? It's carried. Two meetings out?
Well, that's going to depend, and it should have maybe been dealt with during the deferral motion, so we know when it's coming back. I caution the committee in terms of a building envelope. That's not the purpose right now. It's to determine if there's a buildable lot. The building envelope could change depending on what building plans or what model of home is proposed here. And we don't know what the REN setback is going to be depending on the lot configuration. So I just caution the committee in terms of requesting staff to determine a building envelope. That's not the purpose of the consent application before you. It's really the configuration.
Create two lots. Either, no matter how we separate the lots, we still need a minor variance. We've done the 20 meters because, so we could, locate the driveway accordingly, and, but, that's open for evaluation as well.
Okay, just to answer my question, when would you like it deferred to?
I think the soonest opportunity possible, the next meeting would be our preference.
The problem is if there's a reconfiguration of the lot, it will need to be re-advertised.
I'm going to suggest a May meeting, maybe? It gives you 2 months. Okay. Can we get a modification to the resolution again?
I'll modify that motion to include the deferral to the May meeting.
Seconder?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you very much for your participation this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for their patience on this one. At this point, we have a series of applications all relating to the same property. So can I have the app?
So sever a parcel of land from the existing property at 131 St. George Street. This will require a minor variance for the existing dwelling. It will be located 6.3 meters from the new property line rather than 7.5. Staff have reviewed the variance in light of the four tests of the Planning Act and finds that it meets all four and is recommending approval. With respect to the consent application, staff have reviewed the application in light of regional, provincial, city policies and finds that it meets all of those policies and is recommending approval. The conditions, there are no changes to the conditions as noted in the staff report.
Thank you, staff. Can the applicant state their name for Madam Clerk and if they've had an opportunity to review the staff recommendation?
Good morning, John Crummer, acting as the agent. I have read the report. There's just two conditions I do want to talk about. The one of them is with the tree plan. There's currently no trees on the site. And then in terms of the variance, just so the committee knows, this is for an existing building. Future plans are to demolish it, so just wanted them to know. Thank you.
Thank you, applicant. At this point, I open the floor to any members of the public that wish to provide comments or oral comments. No? The chair is satisfied there's no one here to provide oral comments. At this point, I open the floor to my fellow members to ask questions of any staff. No? So I guess I look forward to a motion on the floor. I guess I can ask a question of the applicant. Which two numbers in particular were you concerned about, the conditions?
It would be,
is it under consent, the tree?
It would be condition number 12 under the consent application.
Number 12.
yeah, that one. There's just no trees on it, so I'm not sure what the committee would be looking for.
If Member Santos could put a motion on the floor, we could definitely debate the
Can I ask city staff about that? How does that apply then to this property?
Thank you, Member Santos.
It was a condition recommended by our environmental planner, given the trees on adjacent properties, and there could be impacts. It may be as simple as just a plan that says there are no impacts, but it was a recommendation from our environmental planner.
Thank you. And just to confirm then, the plan now is to demolish the property that's currently on the retained land?
The future, yeah, the plan. But currently, that's why we need the variance, because it's existing.
I'll put a motion on the floor to approve.
As recommended by staff?
As recommended by staff.
I'll move just to open debate. You know my position on the trees. Are you movable on it, or?
Well, if I see no opposition, I just see like the neighboring property has a bunch of trees though as well. There's none there, but just from this photo. Like I appreciate what the applicant's saying, but the neighboring property does have a number of trees. And it's going to be a small lot.
Yeah, it is a small lot. Thank you for that.
Through the chair, just a reminder that if there is a tie to the vote, then the motion fails.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll put Member Santos' motion to a vote, and just for Madam Clerk, it is as recommended by staff. So all in favor of the motion on the floor? Yeah, passes unanimously, so thank you very much. Oh, we need a second motion too, right? I apologize for that. So now we have approved the minor variant. No, can staff give me a hand here, please? Thank you. We've approved 38. We've approved the consent. We did 11, and now we need 38. Okay. So we need a second motion for the.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah. So I'll second the motion, and I think there's no debate. I'm happy. That's good intel, and so all in favor, and it passes unanimously. So thank you very much. At this point, I ask for the applicant for application A 2023-039. That's 149 Queen Street. Can the agent or applicant please come forward? And when staff is available, please introduce this application.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a minor variance application and consent application to basically create a lot in between a church property and a single detached dwelling for an affordable housing project. So the first application for consent is proposing to sever the property municipally known as 149 Queen Street from the church property. The second application for consent is to create the lot for the affordable housing project. And the third application for consent is to create an easement over the church property in favor of the affordable housing project. There's also some easements required as part of the affordable housing project in B23-014. There are a number of changes to the conditions that I would like to walk the committee through. So no changes to recommendation A, which is for the minor variance. Staff have reviewed the minor variance to recommend that the parking be reduced from 37 parking spaces to 0 parking spaces as it meets the 4 tests in the Planning Act. Part B recommendation, this is consent application 2023-013. Condition number 4. The complete building code assessment for the existing dwelling proposed to be retained on the severed lands rather than the retained lands. And that B be revised to state that submit a letter of undertaking to agree to attain a building permit instead of obtaining a building permit, so just some minor wording there to accept the letter of undertaking. Part C, there's a typo in the consent application number. That should be 014 instead of 015. Condition number 2 is deleted, is proposed to be deleted. The site plan application has been submitted and is currently under review, so we don't need to have conditional approval for that. In substitute of that condition, we're recommending the building code assessment condition be inserted here. I can provide the wording to the clerks. It would be the same as what's in consent application above. And the building code assessment would be for the existing church buildings. And B would be to submit the letter of undertaking if there's any building permit required for that remedial work or upgrades. Condition number, I'm going to say that's 5, 6, 7, and 8 are engineering conditions. I just want to confirm they're in the staff report as such. Yes, so condition 6, 7, 8, and 9 are engineering conditions. I can confirm that the Director of Engineering has agreed that these can be deferred to the site plan application, so they are proposed to be deleted. And the regional condition for the archaeological assessment can be deleted as well. That will be dealt with at site plan application. And then in terms of the noise condition for the noise study, the region has agreed that they are acceptable or amenable to a noise warning clause, an agreement to enter into to provide a noise warning clause on title of the subject properties. So that it will be amended to require the noise warning clause rather than the noise study. And there are no changes to recommendation D.
Thank you, staff. Does the applicant has the applicant had the opportunity to review the staff report, and especially in light of the new staff recommendations to this committee? A little light.
Yes, we have. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, the committee has received written submissions, and we have reviewed it. I appreciate the thoughtful letters, but at this point, the committee is opening the floor to any members of the public that wish to speak against or in support of this application. And I have a gentleman here. Yep, thank you. You just come over on the left. Your right. One over, yep. And then just state your name for Madam Clerk in the record, please.
My name is John Heidinga, and I live at Sandhills Retirement Community next door to the proposed building and plan. I live in Unit 301, and I'm here with a delegation representing some 40 residents from Sandhills. There are about 6 or 7 of us here, including the chairman of the board of Sandhills, and also Harold Lee from Home and Life Realty. So I'm not going to go through I have 2 briefs before you, and I thought I would speak to the first one regarding the building, parcel C first, and then, if that's okay, to follow that up with addressing more briefly the issue about parking. Thank you. This is my first time speaking to such an august body, and so I pray that, trust that you would give me some leisure. Forgive me if I not quite on track always. Bill 23, I got a notice about Bill 23 that we are simply considered interested parties. I would disagree with that. I would argue that we are affected parties. And in fact, that there is some injury caused to those of us, particularly in the units facing the building, financial injury and other, in terms of quality of life. And our primary focus in regards to the severance of the parcel for that building is that its erection would not only obstruct views and light and so forth, quality of life, but also primarily the loss of valuation to each unit, which in the current market would be about $50,000 per unit. There's 10 units there that would be primarily affected, other units to a different degree. Now, to forestall my good friends over here sitting beside me, that they would argue that that valuation is very subjective and not confirmed by qualified professional appraisers. I would say this, that these units are life leases. Not many real estate companies will handle life leases, and very few are familiar with life leases. I have Mr. Harold Lee from Home and Life, who is a realtor and has handled many, if not all, of the sales of these life leases. He is a person who is very familiar with life leases. There are many horses of different colors, life leases, and he is probably, on the basis of his experience, the most qualified to confirm that valuation of the loss of about $50,000 per unit. These are elderly people. They are fragile. They are towards the end of their lives. They are people who have invested in society all through their life and in the city, and are now in a position where they have become collateral damage, as it were, in the course of this proposal. They have never been consulted, and until recently we have met with St. Paul's, the planning team there, and in conversation with Mr. Joss LaValle and others there, the general response has been, we're doing something good for the community, 20 low-income housing units and others of market value, possibly geared to income, possibly not, I don't know. But they're doing it out of compassion for the low-income seniors. My comment to them is that we applaud that. We recognize the need for low-income housing for seniors and encourage that. However, our concern is that their compassion has not extended to the seniors who are living next door. Many of them a number of them in their 80s. We have about 20 in our building who are 75 to 85, and 30 more in the 65 to 75 bracket, and others. I want to ask you as a committee, if someone plunked a building 15 feet in front of your picture window, you know, your primary windows, would you approve that? Would you be happy about that? Or if it was your parents, your elderly parents, who were suffering that kind of obstruction and loss of valuation, how would you feel about that? Would you approve that today? I suspect that would not be so quick to pass muster. I'd like to introduce you to Marilyn, if I may. Marilyn, would you stand up for a moment where you are? Marilyn is in her mid-80s. She is, you can be seated again, thank you. She is on the lowest floor. She's in room, unit 102. She has experienced a number of losses in her life, including the loss of a partner, a supporting partner who would speak for her and stand alongside of her. Financially, she has poured her life savings into the unit in which she now lives, and is quite alarmed that the loss of valuation in terms of her investment, that the day comes when sooner than we often want it to be, when she and others may have to go into long-term care, and to be able to afford quality long-term care, $50,000 loss in her unit may be small cheese for some of us, but for her that's very significant. She barely is able to make ends meet, you can see that age brings its own infirmities, and you could take the situation that's more common in the building as well, where one partner has been rendered infirm, perhaps because of dementia or stroke, and has to go into long-term care, and so now that person has to carry the burden of long-term care for one, and has to still at the same time consider the need for long-term care down the road for themselves. The financial loss, it strikes me, we met with this, two members, one from the city, and Mr. Garrett Stevenson, and someone from the region, Mr. Shoemaker. Can't remember his first name now. But Mr. Stevenson was very appreciative, very warm, took notes, listened carefully, asked questions, and we felt like we were being heard. The gentleman from the region did not really participate very much in the meeting, and I asked him the question because this had come out in the papers that the region had placed the original ask by the church, my good friends beside me here, was that for 760,000, something like that, and the region doubled that and gave them, I think, 1.4 million for this with this project.
Sir, we need to keep this, we're concerned over an application for minor variance and an application for a consent to sever. Unfortunately, this committee has no power over federal or regional funding for affordable housing. So if we could focus the committee is very open to submissions regarding the consent and the minor variance, but not for federal funding for affordable housing.
I would like to speak to that because the severance is connected to the building and is connected to the funding, and was approved without even a site impact study. And I don't know if the region has made that even to date. I appreciate the city coming in and the person from the region. Listen, I'm going to be a little facetious here, and I hope you will bear with me. But if to the severance in this building, if there was next door a whooping crane nest, a nesting area for whooping cranes, that would stop this building in its tracks. Well, you know, the seniors are not exactly whooping it up, but they are, that's their nesting area. That's where they live. And this building is going to obstruct their views and their life and cause them financial injury. And they are far more important than whooping cranes. And so I'm speaking to your heart, not just to, this is not just about bylaws or severances, it's about people. And perhaps seniors like this should be protected species, is what I'm saying. There's going to be construction. The excavation will likely be right to the boundary line. Marilyn will be living with that construction for a year, and Martha sitting next to her. And the noise and the dust and machinery and whatnot. You know, Bill 23, the ability to overcrowding, to take one house and turn it into 3 right to the property line, severances, variances. This is the kind of thing that our city fathers and those who sat in your chairs in years before had bylaws for that, and protected it not only against green space but against overcrowding, and the severance allows that kind of overcrowding, and so yeah. I would like to say one other thing, and that is that I would encourage you to defer, put a hold to this building. You know, there's that bus depot over here, and the opportunity there to put in a grocery store. Your 15-minute walk, the building, the city, kind of city, compartmentalized city that you're all working on. And with that, to include, with the help of developers and significant funding that would be available through the private sector, to add residences, low-income seniors and market value residence towers. This was done in Saanich, BC, where I used to live, and it became a beautiful market square. Putting a stick-built building in on this church property does not fit with the character of the property and the density of the property, and so, you know, for these reasons, I would speak against the severance of Parcel C.
Thanks for your submissions. They're much appreciated. If any of my fellow members had questions for the member of the public, I welcome the questions. If not, I open the floor to the applicant if they wish to make any submissions or comments towards the committee or the public.
Hello, my name is Peter Maxwell. I'm from Maxwell Building Consultants. I'm the development consultant on this project for Historic St. Paul's. Just wanted to give you a little bit of background without getting into any details and keeping it as brief as possible. HSP identified the need for affordable housing and wanted to do something about it in early 2020, so it's been working on this project for about 3 years. It's gone through a number of different iterations of the plan, explored basically all of the possible building envelopes on the site, and has proceeded to the current design with feedback from neighborhood communities, without getting into the details of how an affordable housing project is financed. This project will receive funding from the province and the region. Related to that funding are some timing constraints. We need to complete this project in approximately a year and a half. And also there are some constraints related to the CMHC funding, and that actually is the requirement for this severance. If it weren't for the requirements of CMHC funding, this parcel wouldn't be severed at all. It would just be built on the site as it is. So we have to work with a number of different constraints in order to achieve this project. We feel that I probably don't need to offer any support of the need of this type of project within the community and within the growing seniors population that needs affordable housing. So I'll keep my comments very brief, and I'm pleased to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. At this point, open the floor to my fellow members if they wish to ask questions of staff or the applicant. Yep, Member Hanna.
Just before we go too far, are there other members in the gallery who wish to speak? There seems to be a lot, or is it you, the spokesperson?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I just have a quick question for staff. I want to make sure I get this correct, and maybe the applicant can help out. I think there's an error in Clause A. Clause A refers to 149 Queen Street requiring 0 spaces in lieu of 37, and I think 149 is the tiny building. And I think the church is 137, and I think that's requiring the parking.
You're correct, Chair. That is an error on staff's part, so that should be the minor variance for 137 Queen Street South. Yes.
Okay, and I just have a quick follow-up for the applicant, just to make sure I've got all the easements correct here. There will be underground parking for the proposed new building, and that the church will have access to that, correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the church will not have access to the underground parking, just the surface parking that's accessed off of Church Street.
Okay, the sketch says easement 2 is in favor of parcels A and B. So parcel A would be the church as well.
Through you, Mr. Chair, indeed it does request an easement over that piece as well, but it's not for access to the parking garage. There are some pedestrian walkways and the occasional need for drop-off in that area in favor of the church and 149 Church Street.
Because of where their kind of front door is now, you'd have to move up in there. In behind the little parcel, the building on little parcel B, there is several spaces based on my site inspection. Will that still be available for somebody who wants to buy that parcel?
Just a point of clarification, do you mean on the side closest to Sandhills, or on the side closer to?
It's right in behind 149. There's a little parking area there. It looks like there's room left for one space, I think.
I believe so. It doesn't appear to be impacted. As long as it's contained on 149, it would still be accessible via this easement.
Okay, and so the church will still have access to 11 spaces?
The church would have access to the 15 surface parking spaces. Or 16 surface parking spaces.
Somebody point out the 16, I'm looking at 11.
Let me see. Got the wrong plans in front of me.
So some of the parking spaces aren't legal parking spaces.
Oh, indeed. Okay. Yes, those are the parking, you're correct. Those are the surface parking spaces that are available to the visitors of the proposed development as well as the church.
Okay, thank you. And just a question for staff. I'm looking at the diagram here, and the property next door, which we've heard a good presentation from the representative, it looks like that blank wall is almost on the property line. Am I reading this correctly? And then it looks like the balcony and the windows are recessed slightly.
That is what has been provided by the applicant, yes.
Okay. And what is the minimum setback requirement in this particular zone? Like, what would the minimum that the church, this new development, have to abide by as far as the side yard? The reason why I'm asking is they're proposing almost 5 meters, which I think is more than acceptable in an urban environment, but I'm concerned that they'll come back through site plan and build it closer.
The minimum side yard requirement in the D5 zone is 1.2 meters.
Unless my fellow members had any other questions, thank you for that clarification, staff. Always appreciated. I look forward to a motion on the variance first.
Just a clarification, should we be putting one motion at a time or the entire motion on?
They all seem to be interconnected. Madam Clerk?
Yeah, through the chair, you can put several motions on, or you can just clarify whoever puts the motion on the floor if you're doing it for a specific application. So you can start with consent, either all 3 or 4 of them at the same time, or you can start with the minor variance one. So it's really just how you word the motion.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So with the newfound information, my fellow members looking to motions we could debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm prepared to move all of the recommendations per all of the modifications that were either suggested by myself with the first one and also introduced by staff. I will provide my comments during debate, but just to get it on the floor.
Thank you, Member Hanna. Can I get a second? Member Santos, second. Thank you. And the floor is open for debate. So, Member Hanna, you want to get us going?
I am very much in favor of affordable housing. I have taken to heart the comments from the adjacent development. They are very close to the lot line and they will have some impact, but I don't think that should negate this particular development if it's built the way it's being proposed. I was a little bit questioned what the easements were all about. That's been clarified, so it kind of makes sense to me. And that's what we're approving today, is we're approving the consent for creation of the lot and the consent for the easements for access and parking. It's very clear in the staff report that no variances are required for this development, so that has me liking it. The only variance being is to the parking, and it's a downtown setting, and I think the parking actually will work between you and me. There is some urgency to this. If we don't approve this today, I think they're going to lose their funding for affordable housing. There's still lots of steps to go through, site plan, et cetera. But if we don't approve it today, they're going to lose their funding. So that's got me intrigued as well.
Thanks, Member Hanna. That's much appreciated. If there's no other debate.
May I still speak to that?
Madam
Because I had asked if we could talk about the parking, my parking brief, secondly.
1 second, sir. Madam Clerk, when motion on the floor, can I open to public for more comments? No, so unfortunately, sir, when a motion's on the floor, I apologize. So at this point, on Member Hanna's motion, I put it to a vote, no debate. We're good?
Yeah, I appreciate the comments that were made from the delegation, though. But just our role here, that we're here to confirm like the consent for easement, the lots, and variance on parking, and I feel that's been addressed here. So that's what my focus on, but I do appreciate your comments and from the residents there. Now, I do see here that there will be 16 feet, which is almost 5 meters difference, where even the minimum requirement is 1.2, so that's a significant improvement to what was actually required. So it's just a bit of a silver lining there. So and the building won't be that much higher. It's 6 stories, where I think Sandhills is 5 stories. So yeah, I'm speaking in favor of this motion, and we'll vote to approve based on our requirements here of this committee.
Member Gundrum?
Through the chair, and I want to thank John for representing the residents of Sandhills. I think you gave a lot of good points. I understand the urgency with the funding, and the funding from the higher levels of government is in part what's making this actually possible. My gut's telling me that this is just a little bit too much of intensification on this site, given what you already have right next door to it. So I'm going to have to differ in opinion and vote against the motion.
Thanks, Member Gundrum. So I think at this point we'll put it to a vote. So all in favor of Member Hanna's motion, and then Member Gundrum is against. So the motion carries. And if I remember correctly, we we need one more motion, Madam Clerk. So I look forward to the second motion for the consents now, because we've approved the minor variance. Or am I?
Point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, I thought I had moved all of the recommendations.
Together. Oh, so we're good. Okay, we're good. I apologize. Member Hanna, thank you for the correction. So can I get a vote, or a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yep, motion to adjourn.
Can I get a second? Member Gundrum seconds, and the meeting's adjourned. All in favor, sorry? Unanimous, so meeting's adjourned at 12:38.